Think back to the spring of 2020. The world was deadly silent. The streets were eerily empty. And in that silence, our bodies were fighting a new and invisible enemy. We were told to watch for a cough, a fever, difficulty breathing. But one of the most significant battles wasn't being fought in our lungs, but in the command center of our entire being, our brain. So imagine a thief who doesn't just steal your valuables, but rearranges the furniture, rewires the electricity, and leaves a lingering fog that clouds your every thought. That, in essence, is what scientists now know the COVID-19 virus can do to the brain. When COVID-19 swept the world, the damage it caused extended far beyond the lungs. Welcome to Blossoming Brains, the podcast where we explore the fascinating science behind lifelong learning. I'm your host, Dr. Vicki Draeger, and as a mother of 5 with over 30 years of teaching experience, from energetic preschoolers to dedicated master students, I've always been captivated by the incredible resilience and potential of the human brain. From the earliest days of the pandemic, scientists began documenting a startling range of neurological consequences. In this episode, we will trace what science has uncovered about how the COVID virus attacked the brain. We will then turn to the present, examining what long COVID has revealed about the brain's vulnerability. Years on from the pandemic's onset, the neuroscience of COVID is one of the fastest moving fields in medicine, and the findings are reshaping how we think about viral illness, the aging brain, and the long shadow a single infection can cast. In the beginning, one of the strangest symptoms was anosmia, the sudden loss of smell. It was more than an inconvenience, it was a critical clue. Scientists quickly realized this wasn't just a stuffy nose. The olfactory nerve, which connects the nasal passage directly to the brain, was acting like a secret back door. So think of your brain as a heavily fortified castle, protected by a powerful wall, the blood-brain barrier. And that wall keeps invaders out. But the olfactory nerve is like a hidden tunnel under that wall that leads straight into the castle courtyard. Early research suggested the virus used this tunnel to sneak past the brain's defenses, and that's a process called neuroinvasion. While direct, widespread invasion of brain cells now appears less common than it was first thought, the virus didn't need to kick down the front door to cause chaos. Once inside the general vicinity of the brain, or even just by rattling the gates of the castle, COVID triggered the castle's alarm systems. In those early acute phases of the pandemic, hospitals saw a shocking increase in severe neurological events in COVID patients. This included a 6% rate of acute stroke and a 15% rate of impaired consciousness in some of the first hospitalized groups that were studied. Doctors were treating not just a respiratory illness, but also encephalitis, a dangerous inflammation of the brain itself. The virus was acting like a vandal, cutting power lines and causing short circuits. For some, this meant a major life-threatening event, like a stroke. For others, it was the beginning of something more subtle, but almost as insidious. So, if the virus wasn't always directly infecting brain cells in large numbers, why the devastating damage? The answer lies in a concept called neuroinflammation. Let's imagine a team of dedicated live-in gardeners. So these gardeners are called microglia. Their job is to prune away dead cells, clear out debris, and fight off any pests. They are essential for keeping the brain healthy and tidy in our little garden. But when the COVID virus appears, even if it's just outside the castle walls, the gardeners panic. They hear the commotion and see the smoke. They drop their pruning shears and grab flamethrowers. This is microglia activation. Instead of carefully tidying up, they start spraying fire everywhere, trying to burn out the threat. This defensive fire is the cytokine storm we hear so much about, a massive, overwhelming release of inflammatory molecules. This friendly fire, meant to protect, ends up damaging healthy brain tissue, disrupting communication between brain cells, and even injuring the blood vessels that supply the brain with oxygen and nutrients. Post-mortem studies of patients who died from COVID confirmed this. Their brains weren't necessarily teeming with the virus, but they were filled with these activated inflammatory microglia, especially in areas critical for memory and emotion like the hippocampus. The brain was, quite literally, on fire from the inside. This inflammation is a key suspect behind many of the long-term symptoms. The fire might die down, but it leaves behind a scorched landscape. And that brings us from then to now. For millions, the initial infection was just the beginning. They were left with a constellation of persistent symptoms that we now call long COVID. And at the heart of it, for so many, is what's called brain fog. It's a deceptively simple term for something profoundly disruptive.
That the main
it's
idea
not just
would be...
forgetfulness. It's losing your train of thought
that the main idea
mid-sentence.
would be?
It's the inability to concentrate on a book or a conversation. It's a feeling of being mentally muffled, like your brain is wrapped in cotton. Studies have shown that a staggering percentage of long COVID patients report this symptom. In some U.S. cohorts, as high as 86%. And science is now showing us that this is not just a feeling, it's physiology. Using advanced MRI scans, researchers have seen tangible changes in the brains of people with long COVID. One landmark study from the UK Biobank revealed that compared to pre-pandemic scans, people who had been infected showed a reduction in gray matter, the part of the brain that contains most of the brain's neuronal cell bodies. The changes were most pronounced in areas related to smell and memory. The brain was actually shrinking. Think of it like a lush forest after a fire. The biggest trees might still be standing, but the dense, rich undergrowth has been burned away. The connections are weaker, and the landscape is sparser. This physical change is a likely basis for the cognitive defects that we see in neuropsychological testing. Slower processing speed, difficulty with executive function, and memory recall problems. And this is where the story takes its most recent and perhaps most sobering turn. The changes we've discussed, the inflammation, the damage to blood vessels, the loss of gray matter, appear to have a disturbing consequence. They may be accelerating the brain's aging process. A major study published in Nature Communications in 2025 delivered a bombshell. It found that during the pandemic, our brains aged faster, on average by about 5.5 months. And here's the truly shocking part. This effect was seen even in people who were never infected with COVID. The stress, the isolation, and the societal disruption of the pandemic itself cast a shadow over our collective brain health. For those who were infected, the effect was often even more pronounced. So, what does it mean for your brain to be 5.5 months older? It means a subtle loss of resilience. So, it's like a wooden beam that has been weathered a little more harshly than it should have been for its age. It might still hold the weight, but it has less capacity to withstand the next storm. And the final critical piece of this puzzle is the link to neurodegenerative diseases. In early 2026, researchers at NYU Langdon found that patients with long COVID had higher levels of specific blood markers like p-tau 217 that are also hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease. Other studies have begun to link prior COVID infection with an increased risk of new onset dementia, particularly in older adults. Now, I want to be clear. This is incredibly important to say. This does not mean that having long COVID means you will get dementia. But what it does suggest is that the inflammatory damage from the virus may lower the threshold, making the brain more vulnerable to the processes that lead to diseases like Alzheimer's later in life. It has started a fire that for some may continue to smolder for years to come. Now that the pandemic has ended, people are still getting COVID, and they can still develop long COVID, also called post-COVID conditions, or PCC. It can last for months or even years after the initial infection. Furthermore, it can affect anyone, even those who had only mild or no symptoms at first. Each reinfection can also carry some risk of triggering or worsening long COVID problems. So what are some common symptoms of long COVID? Doctors and public health agencies describe a very wide range of symptoms. More than 200 symptoms have been reported. The most common and frequently mentioned include severe fatigue that does not go away with rest and often gets worse after physical or mental activity. This is called post-exertional malaise. Another symptom is brain fog. Brain fog is trouble concentrating, memory lapses, or just feeling mentally slow. Then there's shortness of breath, chest tightness, or a persistent cough even after lungs appear normal on scans. There are also heart-related symptoms like palpitations, chest pain, or just feeling very out of sorts while exercising. There's neurological and mood issues like headaches, dizziness, trouble sleeping, anxiety, or depression. There can be muscle and joint pain, body aches, and sometimes hair loss, or changes in taste or smell. Other possible problems that people might have, they can develop new or worsening conditions involving the heart, lungs, kidneys, or immune system. And in severe cases, this can lead to long-term disability or need for ongoing medical care. Now, that's a serious situation. Most people aren't going to have that, but it does come in some cases. So if you or someone you know has had COVID recently and feels unusually tired, foggy, or short of breath for weeks after the COVID, it's worth discussing long COVID screening with your primary care doctor or a post-COVID clinic, because there are now more specific tests and treatment strategies than there were in the first years of COVID. So where does that leave us? The story of COVID and the brain is a powerful and at times frightening reminder of the intricate connection between our immune system and our cognitive health. We've learned that a respiratory virus can leave its fingerprints on our neural circuits, that inflammation can cast a long shadow, much like unchecked ivy overtaking a garden bed. It starts as a defensive tangle to fend off pests, but sprawls relentlessly, choking sunlight and stunting new growth, with tendrils lingering years after the threat passes. The health of our brain is tied not only to our personal biology, but to our collective experience. Collective experiences like remote work, mask mandates, and grief over lost routines and even lost loved ones can alter sleep patterns and social interactions for millions, fostering fatigue and attention issues that entwine with biological inflammation in long COVID brains. Studies show these environmental factors contribute to persistent symptoms as brains adapt or fail to adapt within a changed societal context. But the story is not over, and it's not without hope. The same scientific brilliance that developed vaccines in record time is now intensely focused on understanding and healing the neurological effects of long COVID. And this leads to our call to action. It's a simple one. Be a proactive steward of your own brain health. If you are struggling with brain fog, fatigue, or other persistent symptoms, please know that what you are experiencing is real. It's not in your head, it is in your brain's biology. So talk to your doctor, seek out a support group, advocate for yourself. And for all of us, this is a wake-up call to double down on the things we know support a resilient brain. Quality sleep, a nutritious diet, regular physical activity, and perhaps most importantly, staying socially connected and engaged in learning new things. These are the very pillars of a blossoming brain. Finally, I want to highlight the importance of patience and self-compassion in this journey. Recovery from brain injury or inflammation is often nonlinear. There will be good days and tough days. Go ahead and celebrate small victories and be gentle with yourself when progress feels slow. Remember, healing the brain is like growing a garden. Sometimes plants shoot up quickly. Sometimes they take time to root deeply before flourishing. Your journey might not be a straight line, but every step forward is progress. On the research front, exciting developments are underway. Scientists are exploring anti-inflammatory treatments that target microglial activation, hoping to quiet that friendly fire in the brain. Clinical trials are investigating medications used in other neurodegenerative diseases to see if they can help long COVID patients. There's also growing interest in non-pharmacological interventions such as transcranial magnetic stimulation, that's TMS, and cognitive rehabilitation programs. TMS, for example, uses magnetic fields to stimulate specific brain areas, and TMS has shown promise in treating depression and cognitive symptoms related to brain injury. Early pilot studies suggest it might help reduce brain fog and improve memory in long COVID, though more research is needed. Moreover, the pandemic has spurred a broader recognition of how viral infections can impact the brain, and that's opened new pathways for research into diseases like multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's. So, understanding COVID's neurological effects is a gateway to deeper insights about brain-immune interactions that we're only just beginning to grasp. This pandemic has also taught us the importance of monitoring neurological symptoms during viral outbreaks and may lead to new protocols for early detection and intervention. It's also worth noting the disparities in how COVID affects different populations. Older adults, people with pre-existing conditions, and marginalized communities often suffered more severe neurological consequences. A call to action for equitable healthcare access and targeted support. As we move forward, integrating mental health care with neurological care will be critical. Many long COVID patients report anxiety, depression, even post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms that compound cognitive difficulties. Treating the whole person, not just isolated symptoms, will be key to effective recovery. Psychological stress itself can exacerbate inflammation and impair cognition, and that creates a vicious cycle. Mindfulness and stress reduction techniques have been shown to reduce inflammation markers and improve cognitive function, making them valuable tools in recovery plans. So I want to leave you with a powerful image. Picture your brain as a vast, dynamic city. COVID was like a sudden storm that knocked out power in some neighborhoods, it flooded others, and caused traffic jams on main thoroughfares. But cities are resilient. With time, repair crews come, new infrastructure is built, and the city can emerge stronger and more connected. Your brain is that city, capable of remarkable healing and adaptation, but it takes time. This resilience is at the heart of neuroscience today. Our brains are not static. They are shaped by experience, injury, and recovery. Just as a city rebuilds after a devastating fire, your brain can rewire, regenerate, and flourish. Now, on a more personal note, I lived over 25 years on the island of Maui in Hawaii. In August of 2023, Maui was devastated by wildfires that destroyed much of Kula, where my husband and I lived, as well as the entire town of Lahaina, where 100 people died. However, we have seen the resilience of the people of Maui and the rebuilding of the town. Our brains can do the same. Thank you for taking this deep dive with me into the neurological journey of COVID. It's a story still unfolding, full of challenges, but also hope and discovery. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it with someone who would love it, and leave us a review. It helps more curious minds find their way to blossoming brains. So, until next week, stay curious, keep learning, keep growing, and keep blossoming. Thank you.